Hello! Today's stories come from r/PettyRevenge. We've got 3 hilariously petty stories, and we're starting with a Hulk-sized helping. Our story is, I painted my pool green after my neighbor complained about my green pool. One of my neighbors complained about our green pool. It had been neglected for the winter and was looking a bit gross. I was actually in the middle of getting the chemicals sorted when an officer from the council turned up to do an inspection. I showed her all the chemicals and she was satisfied that I was getting it sorted. A week later, and she's back. Neighbors have complained again. It turned out the fiberglass in the pool was badly damaged, and we've decided to rip it out and start again. Neighbor does not like the concrete pool. Council officer mentioned that the neighbor kept going on about how at least the concrete look was better than green. They apparently went on at length about how much they hated looking at a green pool. Green is my favorite color. The tradies doing our work also heard the neighbors complaining about our green pool. They showed me a color chart that lists emerald green as an available color. They'll give me a discount on that color if I want it. I've always wanted a green pool. We're going to start painting next week. Update. Here's the color chart. We struggled to choose between emerald green and brook green, but emerald green is closer to the color it was before we emptied it. Oh, that's green. They're going to hate that. Oh, goodness. Update 2. This is what it currently looks like. In the first image, you can see some of the original fiberglass, which ended up fading to a kind of pale yellowish blue. The green in the middle is the sludge that was left at the bottom after we emptied it. It was gross and smelly. The second image shows the pool after it's been ground back and the top tiles removed. It's ready to be sealed next week. The sealant has to cure for 7 days. Then we can paint. So I'll be back to update in a couple of weeks. Update 3, 18th November. So the pool is still not done. We have finally finished sealing it after lots of problems with the weather. Here's how it looks at the moment. It has to cure now for 7 days. Then we can add the paint as long as it doesn't get over 30 degrees Celsius. It's going to be tight to get it finished before the really hot weather starts. I have spoken to the neighbor a few times. They've made several more complaints to the council about us because of the noise and rubbish associated with the renovations. The council have told them that if they make another vexatious complaint, they will take action against them. I have also spoken to the neighbor about a tree on the fence line that is pushing against the fence, causing it to become a bit unstable. It's apparently our fault, and they're not paying to have the tree removed or to fix the fence. I asked them why it was our fault when the tree is clearly on their side of the fence, but they just ranted about the noise of the concrete grinder and stomped away. The next day, they had trimmed all our trees that overhang their fence and thrown the branches into our yard and into the pool. I am biding my time. My council friend said that they bear the responsibility, obviously, and that when we get the council out to inspect the newly renovated pool, they'll make a big song and dance about the fence, send them a fine, and a repair it or else order. So still nothing too exciting, but I will update once the green paint starts going on. Update 4, 28th November. So, our pool is nearly finished. Here are the pictures showing the progress. Ooh, yeah, okay. Green outer walls, liking it. And wow, very green. That kind of looks like a greenway. The weather has really held us up. The sealant needed 3 days of clear weather to go on, but we didn't quite manage it. You can see the ring left by the rain that arrived about 12 hours short of the sealant curing. Then, when it was finally time to put the color on, the weather got really hot. We managed to get the first coat on, but can't do any more because it was 48 degrees Celsius here today, and you can only use the epoxy between 10 degrees and 28 degrees. Everything will need to be sanded again because you can only leave 24 hours between coats. And we're a tin of epoxy short, so everything's gone a bit pear-shaped. However, today the neighbors realized that the pool was going to stay green. I saw them looking over the fence and they did not look happy. They told us, green pools are against the law. When I asked them to show me what law, they backtracked. They're going to report us to the council again for painting our pool green. It's an awful color and we should be ashamed of ourselves. I've made their lives miserable since they moved in, and it's our fault they've had to complain so much. They said they would fix the pool themselves. I showed them one of the new security cameras at that point. They were going to send some friends around to talk to us. I reported it to the police, who said they'd go around and have a chat to them, and also spoke to a lawyer who confirmed that A, there was no law against a green pool, and B, he would send a cease and desist letter for us if he could come and swim in the green pool. It should be noted that both the police officer and the lawyer are friends or relatives of the tradies who have worked so hard to get this done. Being nice to people pays off. I spent the afternoon trimming trees and dropping the branches back over their side of the fence. Small, petty things are satisfying, but so are big, expensive ones. I'll update when it's filled with water. Edited to add, I forgot to mention that when I told them it was creepy that they stared over the fence to spy on my kids and their swimmers, they completely lost the plot. Screaming, swearing, the works. They wanted to know what I was implying. I said I wasn't implying anything. I was saying their behavior was creepy and was the sort of thing that led to people being suspicious about their intentions. They didn't like that at all. OP is definitely the kind of neighbor that you'd want on your good side, or maybe just the kind of person in general that you'd want on your good side. It is quite clear that he was pushed to this point, though. His neighbors were threatening him. Let's check out the comments where we'll find some tradespeople and petty homeowners coming together in friendship against horrible neighbors. Took a super and said, wow, when the trades you have working on the job hate your neighbor so much they offer you a discount to spite your neighbor. You've got nail said, I've done it, and I've loved every minute of it. Brother, if you've got a hill to die on, I'll join you if I like the darn view. So many homeowners are buttholes that you get that one with a petty dispute. We tradies are homeowners too a lot of the time. And bud, I'll throw my musket on my shoulder and go to war. Someone else added, yes, my house was rebuilt due to a fire and my neighbors were awful. The contractors were super petty with them and I loved it. Like I wanted to paint the house blue, but couldn't decide between two shades. The contractor was like, well, your neighbor was over here nosing around again and said he hated that one. So I say we go with that one. Lucy Aria Rose said, I live for the petty long cons. Numerous Ty said, don't we all? I think it was quite rude that we never got a picture with water in the pool or follow up on the council's promised action against the neighbor, though. Doesn't OP realize we all become quite invested and need resolution? Lucy Aria Rose replied, agreed. Haha. I would have loved to hear a follow up where they also added green deck furniture. Anecdote said, oh, that's so green. I love the commitment. Honestly, I'm blown away by how willing people are to openly admit they're looking into their neighbor's gardens. New neighbor has 2 dogs, and when I finally actually met the human neighbor to say hello, she mentioned she had 2 dogs and was sorry if I'd heard them. And I totally acted like I didn't know there were 2. And what breed they were from looking at them in the garden from my bedroom window. Our second story will give you that Matlock nostalgia as OP fights back against small town corruption in won a lawsuit against a guy who tried to force me out of business because I broke his local monopoly. I am 26 years old, and I decided to open my own business this year. Moving forward in this post, I should point out that I am from a small town, 1,000 people, in the rural Midwest. Because of this, everyone has some sort of connection with someone. We went to one of the liquor stores in the closest city 30-ish minutes away, a small city of 8,000 people. When we were grabbing some alcohol for a party, I was looking at the prices and saw how insane the prices were. For a 6-pack of a local beer, we were charged $15. I was thinking about this and figured that I could probably make bank opening a liquor store. Back in February, I was furious about my crappy job and thinking out loud how cool it would be to own my own business to a friend. My friend's mom happened to be the president of the local bank. He told me, hey, with the pandemic, the bank has been struggling to find customers to give out loans. Right now, the bank is giving loans for cheap. A couple of weeks later, I went in and met with my friend's mom and pitched my idea with the research I had done on alcohol prices, potential demand, and estimated income. I got the loan at a fantastic interest rate. I bought a building, which happened to be the former bank, and hired my dad to help me renovate the building. My dad is a general contractor, and he gave me an excellent quote on materials and labor. After working everything out with the distributors, getting the proper licenses, and getting my paperwork I needed for the government, I was ready to open my liquor store in May. I had started taking out ads in the local newspaper advertising my store and my prices. When I was in talks with my distributors, I learned, even with inflation and everything else, the liquor stores in the city had like an 80% markup. I talked to a local business owner, and he suggested that I have around a 35 to 40% markup. Because of this, I was significantly cheaper than the closest liquor store and had a much wider selection than the gas stations and small local stores nearby. My hometown is near a national forest. As such, we have a ton of people who come up for weekends for recreational activities year round. My first week, the week before Memorial Weekend, after opening, I made a $4,000 profit. It was great being my own boss. If someone was rude to me or my girlfriend, oh, I'm sorry, you can do your business elsewhere. If someone tells my girlfriend, go back to where you came from, they can pay me 15% more at the register. Did the gang and I run out of alcohol? Time to grab my keys, not car keys, the store keys. My apartment is like 2 blocks away, and go to the store. That's not to say that it wasn't difficult running my own business, especially that my only employee was my girlfriend, and we were both working 6 or 7, 10 to 12-hour days a week. I was both manager, accountant, and cashier, but wow, it's so much nicer knowing I can tell someone to pound sand for being a jerk. A couple of weeks after Memorial Day, some old guy walks into my store, a couple of minutes after I opened. He seemed friendly enough, but eventually he offered to buy my store. I'm not going to say the amount, but it wouldn't have even covered my principal on the loan. I rejected the proposal outright and refused to negotiate the sum higher. He walked out of my store saying, "Well, you'll be sorry you rejected that offer." The next month, a guy walked into my store and asked if I was the owner. After saying yes, I was informed that my business was being sued by this random guy I never heard of for libel. After he left, I was freaking out and I decided that I was going to close early. When I got home, I Googled the guy and soon saw a picture of the guy that tried to buy my store. It turns out that that is the guy who owns both of the liquor stores in the nearby city. It also just so happens that he is on city council. With a little bit of further digging, I learned that this city has an ordinance that reads, any business institution that does not fulfill the definition of a restaurant, tavern, or liquor dispensary will be excluded from obtaining a license for the sale of alcohol. Later, I discovered that the same guy happens to be the head of the board which approves liquor licenses. I love small town corruption. Either way, I had a major issue. My maternal uncle happens to be a lawyer in a neighboring state. I decided to call him and try to get some legal advice. I talked to him and read the documents that I had been handed and served over the phone and the search I had done. After receiving all of the information I had read off, I was expecting to get some sort of advice, but instead heard, "Hang on, I gotta make a call." And he hung up. I'm freaking out. I was actually about to post my first post to r/legal advice. I'll be honest, I just wanted someone to tell me it was going to be okay. And I didn't need to crawl to this guy on my hands and knees. As I was writing the title, my uncle called back. "Hey, OP, I just got off the phone with my partner. He agreed that we can take your case pro bono. If you would like to accept, we can discuss at my office tomorrow at 1 o'clock. This is how I learned that my uncle is on the bar in 3 states. So we meet and we discuss the case. It turns out that the guy filed the libel suit against my business based on the ads I took out in the local newspapers. He claimed that my ads were targeted to damage his and his business's reputation. There were a few other things that I had no idea what was being referenced, but Uncle assured me that we would win this case no problem. 3 weeks later, the case is dismissed. But after my uncle says, people like that piece of work will likely try to file another suit against you. If that happens, call me, and I promise I will help. The next day, I get served again, but this time, I am the defendant. Not my store, me. I swear to God, I look at the documentation, and the only thing that changed was instead of my business's name, mine is listed as the defendant. Same thing happens. 4 weeks later, the case is dismissed. Over the next 3 months, I was sued just as many times. Before the 5th case's hearing, we had a settlement meeting. My uncle, the judge, the guy suing me, his lawyer, a bailiff, and I were sitting in this room. Judge says, "You two have been in court 4 times already. Is there any way we could come to an agreement that'll stop this cycle of faulty litigation?" The guy's lawyer says that they have an offer and hand it to my uncle, who then hands it to me. It essentially read that he'll stop all litigation if I sell my business for about 30% of remaining loan principal. I outright rejected the offer and made a counteroffer. I said, "If you drop this case, I won't sue your pants off for harassment." He busts out laughing. Sue me? With what money? The legal fees alone ought to have drained you. You should be happy I chose to extend this offer and not sue your butt into bankruptcy. Buy that dump from the bank when they foreclose on your dumb nuts. The judge, the bailiff, and the guy's own lawyer were all looking at him aghast for saying the silent part out loud about the real reason I was getting sued. My uncle straight out said to him, "Oh, I am sorry. Apparently you were never told. I have taken all of my nephew's cases pro bono. The only money he has spent on your litigations is gas. And bluntly, sir, I think your outburst has just ensured a suit against you." After that, we just left, and I was then informed a few days later that the litigation was dropped. Right now, my uncle and I are talking about the future suit against the guy. I want to sue the guy for a very high amount to try and get press attention on this guy and his sketchy actions. Although my uncle warned me that we'll need to be careful because if we set the damages too high, it'll look like we're just being vindictive. This suit won't be pro bono, but after getting sued 5 times for free essentially, I am not going to complain. Looking back on this, I am so thankful that my friends and family supported the entire way, especially my uncle. Without my uncle, I would have absolutely lost my business. Edit. Although my uncle came into the store today and informed me unofficially that if I chose to continue with the lawsuit, his firm will take the case on a 25% contingency. OP is lucky that he has a family member that is a lawyer and was called to the bar in 3 different states. I don't think many people would be so lucky. And it's nice to see a small business owner come out on top. Let's check out the comments where OP gets a little more advice. The gesture said, "That's some story and just goes to show the corruption that can happen. I'm glad you have your uncle. I'd love to hear about the follow-ups on this one if you get time to post." OP replied, "Yeah, depending how the case moves forward, I'd like to post an edit, but I can't promise anything for a few weeks or months. Proper justice is slow, unfortunately." Someone else added, "You have cameras in your store and home, right? Because if this guy is as nuts as you make him out to be, I wouldn't be surprised at an accidental fire or destruction happening." PRP said, "Does your state have anti-slap laws on the books? This seems like a classic case." OP replied, "Nope." For those that don't know, anti-slap laws are a legal remedy that provide a means for defendants to challenge and dismiss meritless lawsuits. Anonymous Forever shared, "There's a term, vexatious litigant. This guy met that definition, and your uncle should ask that he be declared one in your suit. Then he has to post a bond to cover his opponent's legal fees if he files any more suits, if I read it right. Make him pay your uncle if he wants to keep playing." Crazy Cat Murray said, "I almost wonder if the uncle has run into this guy before and hasn't told OP. If he has a history of BS lawsuits, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. And the uncle would still be bound by client confidentiality to not give out details of prior cases that could link back to his client. While helping family is a good thing, sticking it to a perpetual PETA at the same time would be a wonderful thing." Our third story defines the petty in PettyRevenge, one keystroke at a time. Our story is, "Woman complains about me typing too loudly. I type louder." So, I feel like I should preface this by saying this happened in Germany and all participants are German. Just because complaining about something this stupid is extremely German. I'd know. I'm German and I'm taking time out of my day to post this petty little story. So, in German long distance trains, we have designated quiet zone wagons, where you're not supposed to talk on your phone or do any other loud stuff. Of course, this leaves open the definition of what loud means to you. To a woman sitting next to me, loud apparently means me writing an email on my laptop. The most hilarious thing is that I didn't even notice it at first. I was on a business trip and wanted to get some work done. I was hyper-focusing, typing away. I was vaguely aware that someone was talking next to me, but I didn't really notice what about until I heard the words, "I shouldn't have to put up with this." Now, of course, my drama sensors were tingling. I love drama, and I love listening to people passive-aggressively complain about me. Boy, was I in for a treat. Apparently, this woman had been complaining to her husband for a while about how she specifically booked tickets in the quiet zone and how some people had the audacity to not respect that. The husband seemed pretty disinterested, but she kept on talking, probably thinking I would react to her passive aggressiveness and stop typing. which made the fact that I had been accidentally ignoring her in the beginning even funnier. I decided to see how far this would escalate. My goal was to provoke her to actually address me directly. So I put in my earbuds and put on quiet music. And then I started typing like my life depended on my word count. Before, when I was genuinely writing an email, I would write a few words, then stop to think about what's next. Now I was word vomiting. Like in those typing games where you write nonsense sentences and the goal is to do it as quickly as possible. I was Victor Hugo, and this email was my Les Mis. I could still hear her over the music, and she said, "I'm going to say something. I should say something, right?" to hubby like 5 times until she finally tapped me on the shoulder. Go time. I take off my earbud. Yes? Hi. We're in a quiet zone. You should stop typing. I don't believe it's illegal to type on my laptop here. The rules are only about talking, music, and such. This is a quiet zone. You should be quiet. Plenty of people use their laptop in the quiet zone. I've done it before. And I bet you've gotten plenty of complaints. No, you have the honor of being the first. Really proud of this one. I'm not usually witty on short notice. And I put my earbud back in and ignore her. She kept complaining to her husband, who still seemed pretty chill and disinterested, while I returned to my future 1,000-page novel. Eventually, she left the wagon, saying she would get personnel to come and kick me out or make me stop typing. My source of entertainment temporarily gone, I returned to my actual work. I think the husband and their kid, who was sitting opposite me, noticed I had been screwing with them, but whatevs. The kid kept glaring at me, and later I noticed that he had thrown some gum under my feet, probably hoping I'd step into it. I didn't, though. After about 10 minutes, the woman came back. I still had my earbuds in, but judging by her look and by the lack of personnel in tow, her lengthy expedition had failed spectacularly. I, on the other hand, was pretty happy with my day overall at that point. The cherry on top was that when we were getting ready to leave at the same stop, I was taking my backpack off the top shelf and a sandwich fell out and bonked the kid on his head. It was not on purpose, I swear. I even apologized to him, but considering he had thrown gum at my feet before, I felt karma had done its job. I'm going on a business trip again next week. I love this story. It was spectacular, simple, and downright delightful. I mean, all this talking in the quiet zone? Seriously. On that note, let's check out the comments. Others had the same idea I did throughout the story. Sweet Interview said, "When I was listening to her, I'd have looked up annoyed and said, 'Shh, it's the quiet zone, no talking,' before muttering, 'Ugh, some people.' I actually thought you might do this, but no, you missed a trick that would get under her skin." OP replied, "Haha, you're right, I missed an opportunity." Pegs on Ghosty Snip said, "Where was the, 'Excuse me, miss, but I'm trying to listen to my music in my earphones and can hear you over it. This is the quiet coach. Can you please keep the noise down?'" Lord Timotep said, "I witnessed that one before. Someone loudly complaining, and the person that she was complaining about retorted with this. Couldn't contain my laughter." My Existential Crisis said, "Next time, bring a manual typewriter." Israel 4H said, "I was thinking a mechanical keyboard myself, but a typewriter would be funny too." Sam Anime shared, "To be fair, if I was the one typing on my current keyboard, she'd kind of have a point. I love my clicky keyboard, and I'm a rather fast typist, so it can just be a flurry of click, 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 click that would get really annoying if you were somehow a weirdo that didn't love the sound of clicky keys." If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.